As president, I will bring back peace through strength. Peace through strength would have never happened. If I was president, there would not have been a war with Russia in Ukraine.
In the Oval Office, surrounded by world leaders, Donald Trump turns to Ukraine's president and makes a promise no U.S. leader ever dared. America will help guarantee Ukraine's security.
There'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help, Trump declares, vowing Ukraine will be safe from Russia with U.S. backing. The room erupts in applause. But as cameras flash, one question lingers. What's the catch? Zelensky would soon learn that Trump's bold pledge came with a price that could change Ukraine's fate. A deal was on the table to end the war, but it demanded sacrifices that few saw coming. Fast forward a few days, Trump is on the phone with Vladimir Putin, arranging the first face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky since the invasion. Europe's deadliest war in 80 years might finally see direct peace talks, and within days, dozens of nations will put pen to paper on a pact to shield Ukraine from future attack. It sounds like the breakthrough the world's been praying for. But those guarantees weren't free. They were bargained for, one painful compromise at a time. Here's how we got there. Russia's invasion was grinding through its fourth brutal year. The toll was staggering, over 1 million people killed or wounded. It was the worst conflict on European soil since World War II. In January 2025, Donald Trump returned to the White House, vowing to end the war. By August, he made a controversial move. A one-on-one summit with Putin in Alaska, rolling out the red carpet for the Kremlin boss. Allies were uneasy. Was Trump getting too cozy with the enemy? Days after meeting Putin, Trump convened Zelensky and Europe's top leaders in the Oval Office to hammer out a peace plan. Zelensky knew this meeting could decide his country's destiny. At first, things went surprisingly well. Right away, Trump dropped a bombshell. The U.S. and Europe would guarantee Ukraine's security in a peace deal. There's going to be a lot of help, he said confidently. European countries would be the first line of defense because they're there, but we'll help them out. In plain English, if Russia attacks again, Ukraine will not stand alone. For Zelensky, it was monumental. Ukraine had begged for NATO protection for years and been told, not now. Now an American president was offering NATO-like protection without NATO. Zelensky praised it as a major step forward. There was hope Ukraine might never face Russia alone again. But even as Zelensky smiled for the cameras, he remembered their last meeting in February, a disaster. Trump had scolded Zelensky for not being grateful enough, even mocking his trademark military outfit. That meeting ended abruptly. This time, Zelensky wore a plain suit, which Trump liked, and showered Trump with thanks, reportedly saying thank you at least 8 times. He was determined to avoid another fiasco. European leaders stood around Zelensky to back him up. They wanted to ensure Trump didn't sideline Ukraine or give away too much to Putin. The West was watching. Still, Putin's shadow loomed. Right before the summit, Moscow warned it would accept no NATO troops in Ukraine under any peacekeeping plan. And Trump, keen to avoid a direct clash, quickly agreed there would be no American boots on the ground in Ukraine. You have my assurance, he said. I'm just trying to stop people from being killed. In other words, we'll help Ukraine, but we won't send U.S. soldiers. For Americans, that was a relief, but for Ukrainians, it was unnerving. Would a security guarantee without U.S. troops really deter Russia, or was it a paper tiger? As talks continued, Trump's vision of peace became clear. His team spoke of compromise from both sides, but most concessions were expected from Ukraine. U.S. officials quietly indicated Ukraine might have to swallow some bitter pills. Crimea, the peninsula Russia seized in 2014, would likely be conceded as gone, and NATO membership for Ukraine would be put aside. Ukraine would have to stay neutral. Those terms are agonizing. NATO membership is enshrined in Ukraine's constitution, and giving up Crimea is a huge sacrifice. But Trump's message was blunt. If you want peace, these might be the terms. Meanwhile, European allies pushed for something else, a ceasefire to stop the bloodshed. They urged Trump to insist Putin halt the fighting immediately. Trump initially seemed open to it, but after talking with Putin, he reversed course. Now he said no ceasefire until a full peace agreement. Negotiations would happen while war raged. European leaders were dismayed. Every day of fighting meant more Ukrainian lives lost and more leverage for Putin. Indeed, Russia kept up the pressure. Putin's forces were still grinding forward in eastern Ukraine, and Putin wasn't exactly softening. He continued to demand all of Donbass and a weakened Ukrainian army as part of any deal. It sounded like he wanted Ukraine's surrender, not a fair compromise. Zelensky couldn't ignore the echo of history. Ukraine had been promised security before. In 1994, Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for guarantees of its borders. The US and, notably, Russia signed that deal. But in 2014, Russia tore up those guarantees by invading Ukraine's land. That bitter lesson loomed. Zelensky knew a piece of paper wouldn't stop Putin unless it came with real muscle. There were moments of surprise in the talks, too. Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff claimed Putin had agreed to NATO-style protections for Ukraine. Putin, okay with NATO-like guarantees for Ukraine? It sounded unbelievable, and most observers didn't buy it. The comment made headlines, but many said, "I'll believe it when I see it." Then came Zelensky's hardest moment. Word leaked that Putin's price for peace was Ukraine giving up its claim to the Russian-occupied parts of Donbass, on top of ceding Crimea. In short, Russia wanted to keep every inch of Ukrainian territory it had taken. For Zelensky, that was almost unthinkable. Accepting it would feel like betraying all the Ukrainians who had died for those lands. But refusing it meant the war would go on without end. It was a cruel dilemma. Through it all, Trump's promise was reshaping U.S. policy. Instead of bringing Ukraine into NATO, he was building a new security framework. Europe would carry more of the load, and America would support from behind. Help Ukraine, but avoid a U.S.-Russia war. That's one reason Ukraine offered to buy $90 billion in American weapons, to show it's investing in its own defense and to make supporting Ukraine worthwhile for Washington. Against the odds, there were some breakthroughs. Putin, who had long refused to even meet Zelensky, now agreed to sit down with him. A direct Putin-Zelensky meeting was being penciled in, possibly in Hungary. Just getting those two in the same room was progress. Ukraine's allies also doubled down. About 30 countries started discussing how to stand guard for Ukraine. The UK and France even said they were willing to send troops to Ukraine as peacekeepers if needed. Others pledged fighter jets to protect Ukraine's skies. It wasn't full NATO membership, but it was a powerful coalition forming to deter any future aggression. Zelensky, for his part, promised his people he wouldn't give away their country behind closed doors. He vowed that any peace deal involving territorial concessions would go to a nationwide referendum. The people of Ukraine would have the final say. That assurance kept public trust even as painful compromises were on the table. Now, all the pieces of a possible peace are coming together. Trump's team is drafting the security guarantee documents, hoping to have an agreement on paper within days. If it succeeds, Ukraine will get an unprecedented pledge of protection from the U.S. and its allies, basically a mini NATO created just for Ukraine. Trump even said he'll join Putin and Zelensky at a final summit to wrap it up and end the war. It's a bold gambit, but it's not done yet. The deal could still collapse if Putin backs out or if the Ukrainian public can't accept the terms. The world holds its breath to see if this war will finally end in a negotiated peace. So that bold promise Trump made to guarantee Ukraine's security, we now know what it really means. It means pushing Ukraine to compromise and building a new international security plan to back it up. It's not the clear-cut win Ukraine wanted, but it might stop the bloodshed. In the end, Ukraine may get those security guarantees. On paper, the catch is what Ukraine may have to give up to get them. Peace, it turns out, comes at a price. What would you do in Zelensky's shoes? Would you accept these painful terms for the promise of peace, or reject them and keep fighting? It's a wrenching decision. One thing's certain, this story isn't over, and the Don's breakdown will be here for every twist. If you're still watching, you clearly appreciate the story behind the headlines, so subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns. Give this video a like to support the channel and leave a comment with your take. I read them all. That's the breakdown. Stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.